I never thought I'd be here, but I'm writing this because I'm losing my mind and need some outside perspective. I'm Jack, 35M, and my wife Mia, 34F, has been my partner for 12 years, married for 7. I thought we were happy, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. For context, Mia has always been headstrong, confident, and the kind of person who lights up a room when she walks in. When we met, she was working as a bartender and her energy was magnetic. I was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. Things moved fast. We were inseparable, and within a year we were living together. Life was good for a while. I have a stable job in tech, and Mia eventually transitioned into event planning, which seemed perfect for her outgoing personality. We didn't have kids because she said she wanted to focus on her career first. I respected that, even though I'd been ready to start a family for a couple of years now. Lately, though, I started noticing changes. It began with small things. She'd go out more often for work dinners, and would come home much later than usual. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, event planning involves networking, right? She'd laugh it off when I asked about her long nights, saying, "Jack, I'm not a desk jockey like you, I actually have to socialize for my job." But then, about 2 months ago, I saw her texting someone late at night. She usually keeps her phone face up on the counter, but suddenly it was glued to her hand and she started putting it face down. When I asked who she was texting, she rolled her eyes and said, "Ugh, it's just Kelly from work." "Relax, Jack." "Kelly, huh?" Funny, because when I asked her more about Kelly, she got annoyed and said, "You wouldn't know her, she's new." I let it go, though something didn't sit right. I told myself I was overthinking it and that I needed to trust my wife. Then last week something strange happened. I came home early from work to surprise her, something I don't usually do. When I walked in, Mia was sitting at the kitchen table, looking startled. She quickly shut her laptop and said she was just wrapping up some invoices. Here's where it gets weird. Mia hates working from home. She's told me a million times that she can't concentrate and prefers working at the office or a cafe. So why was she suddenly so invested in working from the kitchen? When I asked her about it later, she snapped, "Why are you being so weird, Jack? Do I have to explain every second of my day to you now?" It was the first time she'd been that defensive over something so small. I can't explain why, but that moment planted a seed of doubt in me. Something felt off. A couple of days after that awkward kitchen moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. Call it paranoia, but I started paying more attention to Mia's behavior. She was glued to her phone even more now, laughing at texts and saying things like, "Oh my God, you're so bad," when she thought I wasn't listening. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd brush it off with a smirk and say, "Relax, Jack, it's just the work girls." But the truth is, Mia doesn't have work girls. She's always complained about her co-workers being too uptight or not her vibe. The real breaking point came one Friday night. Mia said she was heading out for a team-building dinner. She put on a dress I hadn't seen her wear in years, tight, low-cut, the kind she used to save for our date nights. It felt wrong. I casually said, "Wow, you look great. Isn't this a bit fancy for a work thing?" She smiled sweetly, but there was something in her eyes that felt rehearsed. "Jack, come on, it's just a dinner. You know how these corporate types love to overdo everything." So she left. And I waited. Around 10 p.m., I decided to call her. No answer. Texted her, nothing. Finally, at midnight, she texted back. "Still at dinner. Don't wait up." But here's the thing, I had a gut feeling. So I opened the Find My app on my phone. We'd set it up ages ago for convenience, back when we were the kind of couple who trusted each other completely. Her location pinged, and she wasn't at a restaurant. She was at a hotel downtown. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. I didn't know what to do. Should I call her again? Should I go there? Confront her? But what if I was wrong? What if there was some logical explanation? So I did nothing. I stayed up all night waiting for her to come home. When she finally walked in at 2 a.m., she was all smiles. "Ugh, what a long night. Those people are exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels. I couldn't hold back. "How was the hotel?" I asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. Her smile froze. What? What hotel? I saw your location, I said. You weren't at any dinner, Mia. You were downtown. Her reaction was immediate, she laughed. Oh my God, Jack. Are you seriously tracking me now? That's creepy. I stopped by to help Kelly pick something up for her boyfriend. She was too drunk to go in alone, so I walked her in. You're unbelievable. It sounded ridiculous, but the way she said it was so convincing. She even rolled her eyes like I was crazy for questioning her. I didn't know what to believe, but I let it go for the moment. Still, something about her story didn't add up. After that night, things between us felt tense, like there was an unspoken battle brewing. I tried to act normal, but every little thing Mia did seemed suspicious to me now. She started making more last-minute plans with her co-workers, often saying, "Don't wait up. I might be late." I kept telling myself I needed proof. Something solid. Then, a week later, I found it. Mia had left early for work, rushing out the door like she was running late. I was cleaning up the bedroom when I noticed something unusual, a single gold earring lying on the nightstand. The thing is, Mia doesn't own earrings like that. She prefers bold, flashy jewelry, not dainty pieces like this. At first I thought maybe it's new? But then I realized, Mia hadn't worn earrings at all the night before. I'd remember because she always asks me to help clasp them on. I picked up the earring and stared at it, my heart racing. It was delicate, elegant, totally not her style. That's when the thought hit me, what if it isn't hers? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so when she got home that evening, I decided to test the waters. "Hey Mia," I said casually, holding up the earring. "You left this on the nightstand. Didn't know you had something like this, it's pretty." Her reaction was strange. At first she froze, her eyes widening just slightly. Then she broke into a nervous laugh. "Oh that? Yeah, I borrowed it from Kelly last week. Must have forgotten to give it back. Thanks for finding it." She snatched it out of my hand and tossed it into her purse like it was nothing. Her explanation felt too quick, too rehearsed. And it didn't explain why the earring was on the nightstand. But again I let it slide. I wanted to believe her. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who turns every little thing into a conspiracy. Still, the doubt wouldn't leave me. A few days later I decided to check her purse while she was in the shower. I felt guilty even considering it, but something in my gut told me I needed to. The earring wasn't there. So where had it gone? After the earring incident, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Mia was acting perfectly normal, too normal actually. She was overly sweet, always asking if I wanted her to make dinner or if I needed anything. It felt like she was trying to distract me. Then came the text. It was a random Wednesday evening, and we were sitting on the couch watching a show. Mia's phone, which she always kept glued to her side, buzzed. Normally she'd glance at the screen and ignore it, but this time she picked it up so quickly that it caught my attention. Her face went blank for a split second before she put on a forced smile and said, "Work stuff. Be right back." She got up and disappeared into the bedroom. I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I walked quietly down the hall and stopped outside the bedroom door. I could hear her voice, muffled but agitated. "No, I told you I can't talk right now. I'm at home." Her tone sent chills down my spine. She sounded frustrated, almost panicked. When she came out a few minutes later, her entire demeanor had changed. She was overly cheerful again, practically bouncing back to the couch like nothing had happened. "Everything okay?" I asked, pretending to be casual. "Oh yeah. Just some last-minute changes for a client's event. They're driving me nuts," she said with a laugh. "Who was it?" I pressed. She hesitated, just for a moment. "Kelly. You know how she gets when she's stressed." There it was again. Kelly. The mysterious coworker who seemed to be the go-to scapegoat for everything lately. I didn't push further, but later that night when Mia fell asleep I made a decision. I opened her phone. I know I crossed a line. But by then I felt like I had no choice. She deleted the text thread. Every single message. But in her recently deleted folder, there was one text still visible. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. It was from a number not saved in her contacts. My heart sank. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her? Should I wait and see if more evidence came to light? A part of me still wanted to believe there was some kind of misunderstanding, but the logical side of my brain knew better. Mia wasn't just lying, she was hiding something. After finding that text, I could barely sleep. My mind kept replaying the message over and over. Last night was amazing. What did that mean? Was it a romantic dinner? Did she spend the night with someone else? The next day I acted normal, or at least tried to. Mia, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease, humming to herself as she got ready for work. I watched her from the kitchen, wondering how she could act so carefree while I felt like my world was crumbling. Around lunchtime she called me, which was unusual. "Hey babe," she said cheerfully. "I was thinking, why don't we go out for dinner tonight? Just the two of us. It's been ages since we had a proper date night." I was taken aback. Was this guilt talking? Or was she trying to deflect my suspicions? Still, I agreed, thinking this might be an opportunity to get a better read on her. That evening we went to one of our favorite restaurants, a cozy Italian spot we hadn't been to in months. Mia was her usual charming self, laughing at my jokes and making playful comments about the food. For a moment, I almost let myself believe that things were okay. But then, as she reached for her glass of wine, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, her smile faltering for the briefest second before she flipped the phone over. "Work again?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Yeah, just Kelly," she said quickly. "I'll deal with it later." I nodded, pretending to let it go, but my suspicions were on high alert now. When we got home, Mia went straight to the bathroom to shower. As soon as I heard the water running, I grabbed her phone. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. The most recent text wasn't from Kelly. It was from the same unsaved number as before. "Can you sneak away tomorrow? I miss you." That was it. No more doubts, no more excuses. I took a screenshot of the text and sent it to myself before putting her phone back exactly how I found it. When Mia came out of the bathroom, I could barely look at her. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek, saying, "Tonight was so nice. We should do this more often." I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside I felt like I was breaking into pieces. I knew I couldn't confront her without a plan. I needed more proof, something undeniable. After that dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mia's entire persona was an act. Every smile, every laugh, it all felt fake. I kept replaying that text in my head. "Can you sneak away tomorrow? I miss you." Whoever was sending those messages wasn't just a random fling. This felt deeper. The next day, Mia said she was working late again. I didn't ask questions this time, I just nodded and let her go. But this time, I wasn't staying home. I waited about 20 minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and followed her. I knew the route to her office by heart, but when her car took a turn away from the usual path, my heart started pounding. She wasn't heading to work. I trailed her carefully, staying a few cars back. Eventually she pulled into a coffee shop parking lot. At first I thought maybe I was overreacting, maybe she was grabbing a coffee before heading to work. But then, a man got out of another car and walked over to her. He was tall, dressed sharply in a suit, and looked way too comfortable as he leaned against her car window. I couldn't see Mia's face, but the way she tilted her head and laughed, it was too familiar. They talked for a couple of minutes before she got out of the car. She hugged him, and then they walked into the coffee shop together. I parked a little down the street and watched through the window as they sat at a corner table, leaning in close. Mia's expression was animated, smiling and laughing, like she didn't have a care in the world. At one point, the man reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my chest tight and my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. I wanted to march in there, demand an explanation, make a scene, but I didn't. Something held me back. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures. It felt wrong, but I needed proof. They stayed in there for about 40 minutes. When they finally came out, she hugged him again before heading back to her car. He walked to his and drove off in the opposite direction. When Mia got home that night, I asked how her day went. She smiled and said, "Exhausting as usual. You wouldn't believe how demanding some clients can be." I just nodded. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to figure out what I was going to say, and more importantly what I was going to do. The night after I saw Mia with the mystery man, I could barely focus on anything. Every time she spoke to me, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I kept replaying the scene at the coffee shop, the way she laughed, the way she held his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself much longer. The next morning I decided to test her. Over breakfast I casually asked, "So, how's Kelly doing? You've been talking about her a lot lately." Mia froze for just a second, a barely noticeable pause, before she plastered on a smile. "Oh, she's fine. Just stressed with work like always." "Maybe we should have her over for dinner sometime," I said, watching her closely. Mia's smile faltered. "Oh, she's not really the dinner guest type, you know? She's kind of introverted." That was enough for me. I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to pick the right moment. That evening she mentioned she'd be staying late at the office again. It was the perfect setup. I told her I'd make myself a quiet dinner at home and catch up on some reading. She kissed me on the cheek, said she'd be back late, and left. This time I didn't follow her. I waited until she was gone and then started digging. I logged into our shared phone account online, something I'd never done before, and pulled up her call and text history. My stomach dropped when I saw the number from those suspicious texts showing up again and again. Dozens of calls and messages, all hours of the day. Then I noticed something else. The same number appeared on our credit card statement. She'd paid for dinner at a fancy restaurant last week, the same night she said she was out with the work girls. When she got home that night, I was waiting for her in the living room. "How was work?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She set down her bag, looking slightly surprised to see me awake. "Long. I'm exhausted." I nodded, then held up my phone, showing her the screenshots of her texts and the credit card statement. "Care to explain this?" Her face turned pale, but she quickly recovered, rolling her eyes. "Are you seriously spying on me now? That's a total invasion of privacy, Jack." I kept my voice steady. "I'm not spying, Mia. I'm asking for the truth. Who is he?" For a moment she just stared at me, like she was deciding whether to double down or come clean. Then she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Oh my God, you're ridiculous. He's a client, Jack. A very important one. I've been working overtime to secure a big deal for my company, and he likes to meet in person. That's all." "A client you have dinner with at 5-star restaurants? Who holds your hand in a coffee shop? Who texts you late at night saying he misses you?" I shot back, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. Her face darkened. "You don't understand how my job works, Jack. Networking is part of it. If you can't handle that, maybe you're the one with the problem." She grabbed her bag and stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me sitting there, stunned. I couldn't believe how easily she dismissed everything, how she twisted it all to make me look like the bad guy. But deep down I knew I was right. After that heated exchange, Mia acted like nothing had happened. The next morning she was up early, humming as she made coffee, as if our confrontation was just a minor hiccup. Meanwhile, I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. I didn't want to be the paranoid, overbearing husband, but every time I tried to calm myself, I remembered the texts, the hand-holding, the lies. I decided to keep my cool for now. If she wasn't going to tell the truth, I'd find it myself. That afternoon, fate handed me a clue. Mia left her laptop open on the dining table, while she ran upstairs to grab something. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist. I glanced at the screen. Her email was open, and at the top of her inbox was a subject line that read, "Last night." My stomach flipped as I clicked on it. The email was short but damning. "I can't stop thinking about you. Yesterday was incredible. I'm counting the hours until we can be together again. Teed." The sender's email address matched the phone number from the texts I'd seen earlier. I quickly forwarded the email to myself and closed the laptop just as I heard Mia coming back down the stairs. I tried to act normal as she breezed into the room, grabbing her bag. "I'm heading out for a quick errand," she said, not making eye contact. "Where to?" I asked casually. "Just picking up some supplies for work," she said, her voice overly light. A thought struck me. "Oh, need me to come? I could use some air." For a split second, I saw panic flash across her face before she quickly smiled. No. It's fine. I'll only be a minute." I nodded, watching her leave. Once I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I opened the forwarded email on my phone. My blood boiled as I reread the message. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was undeniable proof. The client wasn't a client at all. He was someone Mia had been sneaking around with, lying about and prioritizing over me. I decided to follow her again. This time, I wasn't going to stay in the shadows. I grabbed my car keys and followed Mia, staying far enough back to avoid suspicion. She didn't head to any office supply store or work-related location. Instead, she drove across town to a quiet residential neighborhood. My heart pounded as I trailed her to a modest house with a neatly kept yard. She parked in the driveway, stepped out of the car, and walked right up to the door like she belonged there. Before she even knocked, the door opened and there he was, the same man from the coffee shop. He greeted her with a smile and pulled her into a hug that lasted way too long. I felt my chest tighten as I watched them. It wasn't a professional meeting. It wasn't work-related. It was personal. When Mia stepped inside and the door shut behind her, I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, expose the lies, but something held me back. I needed a clear head, a plan. After about 30 minutes, they still hadn't come out. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I got out of my car, walked up to the house, and rang the doorbell. My heart was racing, and I half expected Mia to run out the back door when she realized I was there. The door opened and there she was. Her face froze when she saw me. "Jack," she stammered, her voice trembling. Behind her, the man appeared, looking confused but not guilty enough for my liking. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone casual. "I'm her husband," I said, staring directly at him. Mia quickly stepped forward, blocking the doorway as if that could somehow contain the damage. "Jack, what are you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound calm but failing miserably. "I could ask you the same thing," I shot back. "But I think I already know the answer." The man looked at Mia, then back at me, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe I should leave," he mumbled, starting to back away. "No, don't bother," I said. "I'm not here to fight. I just want the truth, Mia." "You owe me that much?" Mia's face turned red. "Jack, this isn't what it looks like," she said quickly. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing it looks exactly like what I think it is." There was a long, heavy silence. Then, finally she sighed and said, "Fine. Can we talk outside?" I followed her onto the porch, leaving the man standing awkwardly inside. She crossed her arms, avoiding my gaze. "It's not what you think," she began. "Terry and I are just friends. We've been talking because he's going through a rough time and I've been trying to help him." "Help him?" I said, my voice dripping with disbelief. "With what? His relationship? His career? Or his hotel reservations?" She flinched but quickly recovered. "Jack, don't be dramatic. It's not like that." "Then explain the texts, the emails, the dinners. Explain why you've been lying to me for months." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked genuinely cornered. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned and walked back to my car, leaving her standing there on the porch. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a call. I didn't even have to check to know it was Mia. I let it ring, ignoring her, but by the time I got home, there were 3 missed calls and 2 texts waiting for me. "Mia, Jack, please come back. I can explain everything." "Mia, I swear it's not what you think. Let me talk to you." I didn't reply. I needed time to process what had just happened. Sitting on the couch, staring at the wall, I tried to make sense of everything. The lies, the secrecy, the excuses, it was all too much. A little over an hour later, Mia walked through the front door. I didn't even look at her. She dropped her bag on the floor and sat down across from me, her face a mix of anger and desperation. "Jack, why did you follow me?" she asked, her tone accusing as if I was the one in the wrong. "Because you've been lying to me, Mia," I said calmly. "And today I caught you in the middle of it. So why don't you save us both some time and just tell me the truth?" She sighed, rubbing her temples like she was the one under stress. "Okay, fine. I admit it, Terry and I have been spending time together. But it's not an affair, Jack. I've just been helping him through a tough time." "Tough time?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Does his tough time involve late-night texts about how much he misses you? Or dinners at five-star restaurants? Or hugs that last way too long?" Her eyes darted away, but she quickly recovered. "Jack, you're overreacting. Those texts, he was just being emotional. And the dinners were work-related, I swear. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mia, you were in his house today. Not at work, not helping with some client event, in his house. What exactly were you doing there?" She hesitated, then said, "We were just talking, Jack. That's all." I stared at her, waiting for her to crack, but she held her ground, doubling down on the lies. "You're unbelievable," I said, shaking my head. "You've been lying to my face for months, and now you expect me to believe this?" Her face hardened. "I don't know what you want me to say, Jack. I'm not cheating on you. If you can't trust me, that's on you, not me." That was the last straw. "No, Mia," I said, standing up. "This isn't about trust. It's about you breaking it. And right now, I don't think there's anything left to save." Her expression changed, anger melting into panic. "Jack, wait. Please don't say that. We can work through this. I'll stop talking to Terry if that's what you want." I paused, looking at her. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't recognize the person in front of me. "I don't want you to stop talking to him because I told you to," I said quietly. "I want you to stop because it's the right thing to do. But I don't think you even see what you've done wrong." Mia opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. I walked past her and headed to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The next morning, I woke up to find Mia already gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and she hadn't left a note or sent any messages. Part of me felt relief, the other part was boiling with anger. As I sat in the kitchen sipping my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Unknown, hey Jack, it's Kelly. Can we talk? It's about Mia." Kelly. The mysterious coworker Mia had used as a cover for months? My heart raced. Was this some kind of setup? I hesitated for a moment but then replied. What is this about?" "Kelly, it's important. Can you meet me at the cafe on Main Street in an hour? I promise I'll explain everything." Against my better judgment, I agreed. At this point, I needed answers, and if Kelly had them, I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity. An hour later, I walked into the cafe and spotted a woman sitting in the corner, nervously stirring her coffee. She looked up as I approached, and her face immediately gave away a mix of guilt and unease. "Kelly?" I asked, taking a seat across from her. "Yeah," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure if you would." "Let's get to the point," I said, my patience already wearing thin. "Why did you want to talk to me?" She took a deep breath. "Look, I don't know how to say this, but I felt like you deserved to know. Mia's been lying to you, about a lot of things." I leaned forward. "Go on." Kelly hesitated, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "Mia and Terry, he's not a client. He's her, well, I guess you'd call him her boyfriend. They've been seeing each other for months." My stomach dropped. Hearing the confirmation out loud, even from someone I barely knew, was like a punch to the gut. "How do you know this?" I asked, my voice tense. Kelly glanced around nervously before lowering her voice. "I've seen them together. She uses me as her excuse, saying she's with me when she's really with him. At first, I didn't realize what was going on. She just said Terry was an old friend who needed help. But then, things didn't add up. I saw them holding hands once. Another time, I overheard them planning a weekend trip. A trip? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. Last month. She told you it was a work conference, didn't she? I felt a cold rage building inside me. That was the weekend she came back with a tan and a bunch of stories about how stressful the conference had been. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, struggling to keep my emotions in check. Kelly looked genuinely remorseful. Because I feel terrible, Jack. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't stand watching her lie to you anymore. You seem like a good guy and you don't deserve this. I nodded, trying to process everything. Thank you for telling me, I said, standing up. As I turned to leave, Kelly called after me. Jack. I'm really sorry. I didn't respond. My mind was already racing, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. Driving home, my head was spinning. Kelly's words replayed over and over. They've been seeing each other for months. I felt sick, angry, and humiliated all at once. The pieces finally fit together. Every late night, every work dinner, every lie Mia told. When I pulled into the driveway, Mia's car was parked there. My anger surged as I stepped inside. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like it was just another day. Where were you this morning? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked up, startled. Just running errands, she said casually, like nothing was wrong. I laughed bitterly. Errands, huh? Was that before or after you saw Terry? Her face froze. For a split second she looked like a deer caught in headlights, but then she quickly recovered, rolling her eyes. Jack, not this again. I told you, there's nothing going on with Terry. Stop lying. I snapped, slamming my hand on the coffee table. I talked to Kelly. She told me everything. I know about the trip, the dinners, the emails. Don't insult me by pretending anymore. Mia's face went pale. She opened her mouth to respond but didn't say anything. The silence stretched on until finally she muttered, I don't know what Kelly told you, but it's not true. Really? I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the forwarded email and shoved it in front of her. So this isn't true either? He can't stop thinking about you? Last night was incredible? Does that sound like nothing to you? She stared at the screen, her hands trembling. Jack. I can explain. Explain. I cut her off, my voice rising. Explain how you've been lying to me for months. How you've been sneaking around with another man while I've been sitting at home, believing every word you said. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't in the mood for sympathy. Just tell me the truth, Mia, I said coldly. Did you sleep with him? She hesitated, looking down at her hands. Jack, it's complicated. Yes or no, I demanded, my patience gone. Yes, she finally whispered, barely audible. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. Hearing her admit it, actually say the words, was worse than I imagined. How long? I asked, my voice hollow. She wiped at her tears. A few months, she said quietly. But it didn't mean anything, Jack. I swear it was just a mistake. I let out a bitter laugh. A mistake? A mistake doesn't happen over and over for months. A mistake doesn't involve secret trips and late-night texts. This was a choice, Mia. Your choice. She reached for me, but I stepped back. Jack, please, I'm so sorry. I love you. No, I said firmly, cutting her off. You don't get to say that. Not after everything you've done. The weight of her betrayal felt unbearable. I needed space, needed to get out before I said something I'd regret. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and left, slamming the door behind me. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, trying to wrap my head around everything Mia had admitted. Her lies, the affair, the months of betrayal, it all played on a loop in my head. I ended up parking in a lot by the lake, sitting there in silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. Part of me wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. Another part just wanted to cry. Instead, I sat there, staring at the water, trying to figure out what came next. My phone buzzed. It was Mia. I ignored it. A minute later, another text came through. Mia, Please come home, Jack. We need to talk. I didn't reply. A flood of texts followed, alternating between apologies and attempts to justify what she'd done. Mia, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lost and Terry was there for me. Mia, I know I messed up but I want to fix this. Please let me fix this. Mia, don't throw away everything we've built because of one mistake. One mistake. That phrase kept sticking in my head. Was she seriously trying to downplay what she did? Did she think calling it a mistake would erase the months of deceit? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Jack. Thank God. Please come home so we can. Mia, I interrupted, my voice cold and steady. I'm not coming home tonight. I can't even look at you right now. There was a pause. Where are you? She asked softly. Does it matter? I snapped. You lost the right to ask me that when you started lying to me. Jack, I know I hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. But we can get through this. We've been through so much together. No, Mia, I said firmly. I've been through this. You were too busy running around with Terry to care about what you were doing to me. Her voice rose, desperate. I care about you. I love you. That's why I'm trying to fix this. You don't love someone and betray them like this, I said. You don't love someone and make them feel like they're crazy for suspecting the truth. She started crying, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not this time. I need time, Mia, I said after a long silence. Time to figure out what I want. But right now, I don't think there's anything left to save. Before she could respond, I hung up. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel, lying on the stiff bed and staring at the ceiling. My mind was a chaotic mess of anger, sadness, and confusion. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved and trusted for so many years turned into someone I barely recognized? The worst part was that, deep down, I still wanted to believe her. To believe that this was just some terrible nightmare I'd eventually wake up from. But I knew better. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls and even more texts from Mia. I didn't open most of them, but one caught my eye. Mia, if you don't come home, we can't fix this. Please don't throw us away. I'll do anything. It was the anything that made me pause. Was she finally willing to take responsibility? To come clean without excuses? When I got home, Mia was waiting in the living room. She looked disheveled, like she hadn't slept. The moment I walked in, she stood up and rushed toward me, her face streaked with tears. Jack, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you for coming back. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm so glad you're here. I didn't respond, just walked past her and sat on the couch. You said you'd do anything to fix this, I said flatly. So start talking. I want the truth. No lies, no excuses. Just the truth. She sat down across from me, wringing her hands. I told you already. It started a few months ago. I was feeling lost. You've been so focused on work and I felt like we were drifting apart. I raised an eyebrow. Don't put this on me, Mia. You could have talked to me if you felt that way. Instead, you chose to cheat. Her eyes filled with tears. I know and I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking straight. Terry, he was just there. He made me feel wanted. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my temper in check. And what about now? Are you still talking to him? She hesitated and I felt my heart sink. I told him it's over, she said softly. When? I demanded. Yesterday, she admitted. After you confronted me. I blocked his number and deleted everything. I shook my head. You only ended it because you got caught. If I hadn't found out, how long would this have gone on, Mia? Would you have ever told me? She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you, Jack. I didn't know how to stop. Her words felt like another punch to the gut. You didn't want to hurt me? Mia, you've been hurting me for months. Do you even understand what you've done? She started sobbing, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I'll do anything to make this right, she said through her tears. I'll go to therapy, I'll cut off everyone if you want me to. Just, please don't leave me. I stared at her, torn between anger and exhaustion. It's not that simple, I said quietly. You broke us, Mia. And I don't know if it's something we can fix. She reached out to grab my hand, but I pulled away. I need time, I said, standing up. If you're serious about fixing this, you'll give me that. But don't think for a second that I'll just forgive and forget. She nodded, her face crumpling as fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I'll do whatever it takes, she said. I walked out of the room, leaving her sobbing on the couch. Deep down, I wanted to believe her, to believe that she could change. But the damage she'd done was too great to ignore. Over the next week, I kept my distance. I stayed in the guest room, barely speaking to Mia except for the occasional awkward exchange about bills or groceries. She kept trying though, making my favorite meals, leaving notes on my desk, even suggesting couples counseling. But I wasn't ready. Every time I looked at her, all I could see was Terry. The emails, the texts, the lies, it was like a movie on repeat in my head. I didn't trust her, and I didn't trust myself not to snap if we had another confrontation. One evening I got a call from Kelly. "Hey Jack," she said nervously. "I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" I hesitated. "I'm fine," I said, though it was far from the truth. "I'm sorry for everything," she continued. "I feel like I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to overstep." "It's not your fault," I replied. "You did the right thing by telling me." There was a pause, then she said, "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." I know this has been a lot to process. After I hung up, I found myself wondering why Kelly's concern felt more genuine than Mia's apologies. Maybe it was because Kelly had nothing to gain, while Mia was desperate to save what was left of our marriage. That night Mia came into the guest room, her face pale and tired. "Jack," she said softly, "I know you need time, but I need to know where we stand. Are you done with us?" I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the woman I fell in love with. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. But that version of Mia was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't trust. "I don't know," I admitted. "I want to believe you can change, but I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you've done. You didn't just cheat, Mia. You lied to my face over and over and made me feel like I was the crazy one for doubting you." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "Therapy, counseling, anything. I just want to fix this." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Therapy might help you, Mia. But I don't think it'll fix us." Her sobs grew louder as I stood up, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I need to focus on myself for a while," I said. "Maybe someday we can talk about this again. But for now, I think we need to go our separate ways." She tried to plead, but I shook my head. "I'm sorry, Mia. I can't do this anymore." The next morning I packed a bag and left. It wasn't easy, but it felt like the only choice I could make. Now I'm staying with a friend, trying to piece my life back together. Part of me wonders if I made the right decision, but deep down I know that trust is something you can't rebuild once it's been shattered like this. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I don't know what the future holds, but at least now I feel like I can start moving forward.